What is up, guys?
Hey,
Welcome back to Preacher's Hour. I am Jeff Copeland.
I'm Brandon Jackson.
And before we get to introducing our guest, we celebrated 2 years.
Bro, that is
yesterday.
freaking crazy.
October 9th was our 2-year anniversary of Preacher's Hour.
Wow, that's crazy.
We've been doing this for 80 episodes. 2 years, fam.
That thing that we did at the TG.
It was a year ago. I feel like it was like a couple months at the most, yeah.
God, dog,
yeah,
that's crazy.
Man, it's crazy we've been doing it for this long. And we got a new patron.
No way.
Yes. What's my brother's name? What's his name? I think his name is Nick. Do you know him?
Depends on what Nick is. I know a lot of Nicks.
Okay. Well,
like Saint Nick? Like
Uh,
Santa Claus is a patron of ours?
Let's see.
But shout out to you, Nick. Thank you, man. I appreciate
we got a new patron, man.
That's crazy.
So I will.
People
make
will
sure
like give
it's
to
crazy.
us.
Yeah, man. Shout out to you. Shout out to all of our patrons. We appreciate you. Okay, so
Wild.
yeah, so we have a great, amazing guest.
Great, amazing.
We have our sister, our little sister,
Sister.
Emma Tucker,
Hello.
E.T.
Let's go.
E-Tuck,
not the
E-Tuck as
hip-hop
the
preacher.
gangsters call her.
E-Tuck in the hood.
Not the hip hop preacher. We got Emma Tucker, man. Emma
Woo.
is a very, very and crazily talented person. She does photography.
Yes.
She
Shout
That
out
one
to
time.
you. Let's go.
She does do photography like
Oh,
Brandon.
those 2 times.
Yeah.
2 times came through.
Yeah, and Emma is an amazing musician and singer. She's on our worship team at TG.
Yes, she
She's
is.
part of our worship team.
Just
she does
because
a great
nobody else
job.
would do it.
And she's great.
And she's great. Like don't
don't
just
try
say
to
like the
just-
one thing. No,
Yeah.
it's 2
No,
reasons.
she's
It's 2 full
fantastic.
reasons.
She can play the piano. She can sing. She's great. So, also, probably the greatest thing about Emma, her
She's my
gift,
friend. Oh,
is
My hair.
It's great, but
nah.
and it's not her nose ring. It is the fact that Emma is very inquisitive. She has a very inquisitive mind. She loves to ask questions.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah,
Have you ever gotten in trouble for asking too many questions?
probably not. I don't think so.
Like in my house, like growing up, it was not a thing. Like you can ask maybe like once or twice. After that, it was like, boy, get away from me. Go
That's
figure
probably
it out.
why I asked them so freely, because nobody was ever like, shut up.
Oh man, what a blessing. What a
Yeah.
blessing.
So Emma loves to ask questions, and pretty much that's like been most of me and her friendship is her asking me questions. So I was thinking about this, getting ready for the podcast, and I realized that I feel like in this generation and future generations, every Christian in America has this like pretty much defined like path where you grow up in church or you introduced to the faith, either way. And you learn a bunch of stuff. You get on fire, you meet Jesus, all that stuff happens. And then you realize that you learned some stuff that was not helpful or not true. So I think every single Christian has to deconstruct, right?
Yes.
That's just it's just part of the path now. Now, the danger is people don't deconstruct their faith with the Bible. They deconstruct the Bible with the world. Not a good strategy. But you eventually get to this point where you're older and you're just a little bit more comfortable with not knowing stuff. Like you don't need answers. I feel like that's the journey of like every healthy
I can agree
Christian,
with
I would
that.
say,
I
right?
can agree with that.
So I feel like Emma, and you can definitely correct me on this.
Give
I
him
feel
some
like Emma
pushback.
is pretty much out of the deconstruction phase.
I would say so. I have way less questions. than
Yeah,
I
and
used to.
and I think that when you get out of it, you don't ever stop learning. We're
Right.
always learning, but now we have much more of an open mind, I think, to stuff, and we're not as like rigid and closed off and like insecure about
And
our
the
faith.
boundaries you do have are more like robust
Yes.
and like come from a place of knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all that being said, Emma, me and my wife were able to help, walk her through, and I'm sure
A
about other
lot.
people, walk her through a lot of her deconstruction phase.
Which is
And,
really good. Like just
yeah.
to point that out, like it's really healthy to deconstruct with believers who have already deconstructed. I think a lot of people go into this phase and find people who are in the phase with them, and you just kind of like deconstruct
What do you
yourself
think?
out of it.
I don't know. Yeah. So, so yeah, Em. So you sent over a bunch of questions to me and Brandon. We spent the whole week like preparing, and so I'm really excited to go through these questions together.
Yeah.
And help our audience not only like hear the responses. This is a Q&R.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
This is a Q&R. This is not a Q&A. We do not have answers. We have responses, right? Because we're not experts. Okay, we're not. We're just
two dudes with
responding,
microphones,
right? So, I think it's an opportunity for us to learn and for audience to learn, and also feel like they can ask questions. And not that you're asking me and Brandon because we're some experts, but like we as a community can like come together and like find the answers together. So,
absolutely.
So we have a lot of questions. There are 28. We're not going to get to all 28. At least not today. We could always do this again.
A lot of them I wanted to ask you in person, and I saved them just for this.
Oh, this is great. So,
oh wow.
I don't even know how you want to start.
Have her ask the question.
Yes, Emma. So
okay.
you have the bolded ones.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you want to ask the other ones that we didn't bold, you can. I don't know if we have a response to those, but
hey, look, I'm ready to just like get in. If I feel like it's going to be helpful for me in this, like a lot of times we do the podcast and it's like, oh, this is our information to everyone else, but like this time I'm like, I might learn some stuff, and I did learn some stuff as we were like studying.
I'm telling you, man, it was great.
It was great.
All right, go ahead, Em.
Okay, I'll start off with one that's not really like a scary one. It's more just like knowledge. What's the difference between a sadducee and a pharisee? Aside from Sadducees being sad, you see. Before anyone else can make that joke, I wanted to make
and it has begun.
Okay. So they are essentially two political parties is like the best modern
religious
term we have.
party.
Yeah. But they were two basically camps of Judaism at the time of Jesus and obviously before that. So, and they hated each other. They're essentially like Democrats, Republicans. They just had different views on the faith.
that different.
Yeah, to the point where they couldn't stand
even
each other.
the resurrection they believed was like different.
Yeah, so the Sadducees didn't believe in resurrection.
Yeah,
They thought they didn't interpret the Bible that way. They're like, no, that's not going to happen. And so they each tried to get Jesus to like side with them to gain power. And then when he didn't, they actually put aside their differences and tried to come together to like defeat him.
the enemy of my enemy.
Yeah, that's literally what they did. And I forget what part of the Gospels, but they both come to him and challenge him, and he defeats both of them. I think it's the point where he does the whole like bring me a denarius and whose image is on.
Oh yeah. They try to trap
that's
him.
part of that. So yeah, that's what I know about them. But
What's like one aside from
The
resurrection? What's one?
I couldn't tell you.
All right.
I haven't done
Maybe I'll
enough.
Google it.
Yeah, I haven't done enough research on them. I know the Sadducees were smaller, but Pharisees were a lot bigger, had a lot more
Shorter.
influence.
Just kidding. I'm sorry.
That's why they were sad.
Yeah. So they didn't believe in the resurrection. They also didn't believe in like spirits.
Yeah.
So they didn't believe in like demons
and stuff like
or
that.
like
Pharisees
angels.
didn't believe in
Yeah.
spirits.
Which is kind of weird. There were more.
Wait, the Pharisees didn't?
No. The Pharisees did.
Yeah,
The
Sadducees didn't. Yeah.
Sadducees seem like they're more logical type of thinkers. Like we don't want to be as spiritual. Like no, that doesn't make sense.
They're like
or if
Baptists.
they can't say it. Yeah. I said yes way too fast.
Hopefully your parents.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh snap! Wait, what? Yeah, so they were really like just they were more like just strict. So if you didn't believe, they didn't believe in anything that they couldn't really like prove, and they were like super sticklers for the written law. Like if it wasn't written, then it don't make sense.
Yeah, and then the Pharisees were a lot more on their interpretations of things and adding their own stuff to it. And again, they had a lot more influence on people's lives, and more people listened to them than the Sadducees.
Okay.
So yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, there's actually this really cool image that I'll send it to Josiah. You can probably put it up there
on the screen.
But yeah, that's like this is like their differences. Oh, sorry, Jeff. Jeff's like, I want to see, guys.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was like pretty cool. Just like a really like good
The
reference.
Sadducees didn't believe in an afterlife.
Right, because they didn't believe in the resurrection. They didn't believe in that.
That's wild.
Yeah,
That like, which is like funny because like now it's like the only reason, like not the only reason I believe, but like that's like one of the main reasons. After I die, I don't want to just not exist. Like,
no wonder they were sad. So many reasons to be sad.
oh my god.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh.
Oh man.
I'm gonna just start going down because I'm gonna end up skipping some. Okay. Does the Bible say women are unclean on their period? And does that have any theological ramifications? And was it a cultural way of thinking, like unclean? What did unclean even mean? Because as a woman, it's just like a weird thing to think like what parts of that were just cultural and they like took it too far, and what does it really mean that they were unclean?
Okay, so I was looking in Leviticus, and it's really fascinating what's in Leviticus, because it's not just the women; it was also men. Man discharge, which is like semen, was unclean.
No way.
Yeah.
So
like,
anything that
any-
excretes from the body?
except for like sweat and saliva and stuff like that. Like,
Wow.
Yeah. Like so there were rules for both men and women, and it's interesting the way that the writer of that chapter of Leviticus puts it. It's like symmetrical. It's there's a reason for why they wrote it that way. But it's like
gotcha.
the women rules, and it kind of like gets to this point where it's like both of them, and then the men rules. And so, but specifically with women, it's because blood was seen as like life force. And so you had to be very careful with it, like touching it and things like that's why like that you don't want to, if you touch a dead body, you touch anything dead or anything like that. And that's why blood was used for the atonement, because blood is the source of life. And so you would sprinkle that on the stuff. Like, but being unclean does not mean sinful. Those are two different things. So you can be unclean and not sin. Being unclean and being clean is just a state of being in God's presence. So you shouldn't, it was unsafe for you to go into God's presence in an unclean state, because you would have to be destroyed, right? And so that's why they were so strict on going into the temple in an unclean state. So just because you're unclean doesn't mean you're sinning. Those are two different things. And so a woman being unclean, unfortunately, like that was, I don't think it was just, obviously it's just their law, right? So it's restricted to like this Jewish way of understanding the world. But I can't tell you like what the point is, except for the woman with the issue of blood. And the fact that what makes that story so significant is that everyone she touched to get to Jesus, she made them unclean. So like, if Jesus didn't heal her, they would have killed her.
Right.
Because it's like, you're out in public and you know you're bleeding and you touched all of us. You made all of us unclean. We can't go to the temple. I have to go do all this purification stuff just to be able to go to the temple and do my sacrifices. Like, what the heck? You know you're supposed to stay away from us. What are you doing? And so him healing her was, and him like literally announcing to the whole crowd, was like, whoa, this dude has power over that? That's crazy. So I don't know if I'm even...
Actually, so I don't know, after like rereading, I think it's like Leviticus 15, it seems that like this type of uncleanliness was more of a, and obviously I'm not expressing my response, it was more of a like health thing.
Yes, that
like
was...
they were just trying to make sure people didn't like...
I was going to say that too.
Be gross. So like the thing is like, I never read this before, but in verse 15, no, where's it at? In verse 15 through 20, I think it's verse 18, because it's like in between, but I can't really see which verse it is. It says, when a man lies with a woman and there is an emission of semen, both must bathe with water, and they will be unclean until evening. So like even like having sex made you unclean.
That's the middle part. So it's like literally both men and women have these things that can make them unclean. And so, but a lot of what God gave them as law was for their own health. Like the whole tattoo thing.
Yeah.
Like his main thing was like the way they were making tattoos was like using old animal bones. Like you're gonna die. You're gonna get yourself sick. But they didn't really understand. God knew. So he's like, I gotta save you guys from yourselves. You're gonna get diseases. You're gonna pass things between you. That's why the whole thing with leprosy, when he's like, you have to shout out unclean people to stay away from you, because like this is contagious. Like you guys don't understand how this works, but you just know if I'm not supposed to go near that person, because I can get whatever they have. They didn't understand how, but God does. So there's a lot of stuff that goes with it. It's not just women, even though you guys have to deal with that every freaking month. So that's really annoying. But that's the beauty of Jesus, like freeing us from the whole clean, unclean thing, where we don't have to worry about being in the right state to be in his presence. His presence is literally in us now. So like we are the temple. So like we're free from like having to be clean and unclean.
Can I ask a follow-up question that is not on the list?
That's great.
So
I'm not ready.
So in the Old Testament, in Leviticus, where it calls certain things an abomination, isn't that kind of the same word, like unclean? Like specifically, wasn't it some people that I follow who like have arguments against these things? They'll say like, oh, in the Old Testament, abomination just meant unclean. And so when they talk about like homosexuality, they're like, it just means unclean. And now it's different. So like, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, Jeff. How would you respond to that?
Sorry, I'm mostly looking at Jeff because I always go to him with my question.
I'm looking at Jeff. No, I'm looking at Jeff too. Like, all right, let's go.
What is the response?
So this is without having done research, but I would be shocked if they were the same word in Hebrew. And Greek. I'd be shocked if abomination and unclean were the same word. I just don't think that's accurate.
I feel like there was a lot more emphasis on things that were an abomination.
Well, I'm thinking of a sermon that I preached on unity, and I used Proverbs. I think it's Proverbs 6, and I could be way off on where Proverbs is, but there's a verse where it's like, if you cause division, that's an abomination. That's literally what the word says. Like, to be someone who causes division is an abomination. That's not being unclean. That's sinning. Like, that's a problem, right? So I would just push back with like, no, I don't think so. Again, I haven't done the research, but I just, based on what I know, no, that doesn't sound right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll ask you later at church.
Yeah, I mean,
did you do your research?
I think it's just true, because the extent of like unclean is something that passes after evening. So most time when you're unclean, like you would just wash and then you became clean again after like the next day. For the menstrual cycle, like it's after 7 days, then you're clean again. When it comes to like that abomination, what he's talking about, like you don't get rid of that by over time, by washing.
You gotta forget forgiveness. You gotta repent.
Yes.
Like,
So I think it's way deeper.
And there was different types of clean. There's like ritual purity, and there's like ceremonial. Might be the same. There's like different categories of cleanliness and being clean and unclean and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
now I want to go and study all the places.
And then like the
says
spirits,
unclean.
the demons were called unclean spirits.
Yeah,
that's their technical term, and I don't know what that means, but
Okay. Well, speaking of unclean, again, here's another question that's actually on here.
Okay.
So to preface this, I have been for the last year listening to a podcast about cults because it's just interesting. And one of the things they say a lot is that usually it's so like with Joseph Smith, it's like this one guy has this revelation from God, but he's alone. And when you look at the Bible, it's like kind of everybody together, or like God proves. So like Moses was the only one with the burning bush, but then God proved to him that he was God. So it's not just this one guy being like, this is what it is.
Like Muhammad was the same way.
Yeah. So my question is, so was it Peter in the New Testament when the food came down?
I love this question. I'm so juiced.
Food laws were changed because of a dream that one guy had? ?
No.
Okay.
Is the answer.
All right, moving on.
No. So, so Acts 10 is where this story is found. I'm super excited about this.
Did I just pull out a real Bible?
I'm not even gonna lie.
Is that a whole? He's gonna like pull up on his computer or his phone. He's like, nah, let me go get the leather out.
Listen, so I love the research in this question because I remember telling Brandon when we were looking at it, like, just the short answer was no, because when you read the story, that's not when the food laws were changed, if they were even changed. There's a verse in Mark where Jesus says this one thing, and then the writer actually inserts like, this is when stuff became, you have to worry about what you're gonna eat. Oh. Yeah, there's a part on Mark, but in this story, no, it's not because of Peter. So when you look at his story, the whole point of the story, because look, okay, sorry, let me calm down. So it says in verse 12. So the sheep comes down in his dream, and he's super hungry. He like goes into a trance. He has this dream about food. And it says, in it were all kinds of animals and reptiles and birds of the air. And a voice came and said, rise, Peter, kill and eat. Okay, so this is clearly not about food, because who's eating reptiles and birds of the air? Like all of them.
I mean, I've had fried alligator.
I have too. It's delicious. But it's not about eating. This story was not about that. It's about the rules around Jews and Gentiles being able to hang out together. That's what it's really focused on. It's like, hey, Peter, you don't have to worry anymore about being in the same place as Gentiles and like fellowshipping with them, because like I've gotten rid of that. And then that's when Peter like wakes up from his dream, and then those guys, those Gentile guys come from the centurion who's like a Yahweh follower. And he hears about Jesus, and he's like, and then he has a vision and says, hey, go get Peter. So he sends guys to go get him. They bring him, and then Peter like meets them. He even tells them about, I had this vision, blah, blah, blah. He like preaches to them, and then the Holy Spirit comes and like fills the Gentiles. And then all the Jews that came with Peter, and they're like, oh, they can get the Holy Spirit too? This is crazy. Oh, all right, cool. It has nothing to do with the food laws.
Yeah. Was that the first time Gentiles received the Holy Spirit?
First time they got the Holy Spirit. Yeah. So that's what that story is about. So the food laws were not changed because of Peter's dream. It has nothing to do with food laws.
Yeah.
But they were changed in the gospel with Jesus. There's like a note.
It doesn't seem like
so when I say changed, I mean they don't apply to Gentiles. You still have from that point on, all the Jews still kept doing what they were doing. Even Peter, like they still, even in Acts, and I think Acts 3, they still are going to the temple for the hour of prayer. Like they're still doing their practices. Jews were still observing the Sabbath. It's just that when you were a Messianic Jew, on Sunday, you had a love feast with your Gentile brothers and sisters. You just got off to doing the Sabbath still. So like, that's why there's that whole debate. Like Paul and all of them are trying to figure out, do the Gentiles need to get circumcised? Do they need to do all this stuff? And they have this huge thing. They go to Jerusalem. They talk to James. They talk to all the elders, and it turns out, no, they're good. Yeah. And so that was the whole. So like,
because there's no cultural.
There's no change. It's just these things don't apply to you guys.
I think it was made more clear.
Yeah,
it was just made more clear, because even the script that you referenced is it's in Luke, it's in Mark, and it's in Luke. Matthew. Oh, okay. And this is when Jesus calls the Pharisees hypocrites. Yeah. He's telling them, like, you think that people are becoming defiled or becoming unclean because of what they're eating, or how what was going in.
And he says it's what comes out of
you.
It's
what comes out of you that messes you
up.
Which
is your heart.
So he's saying, like, you honor me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me. Mm-hmm. So he's like, you've been unclean, not because of like what you've been
just
eating.
because you've been keeping the law doesn't mean you're clean.
Because they were keeping tradition, and even this whole argument was because they didn't wash the disciples didn't wash their hands. They didn't wash their hands before they ate. And the right way, whatever that looks like. Somebody told me it was like really extra. Like you had to wash, and then you had to like let it drip down like your elbow. It was just, I was like,
spin around 7 times.
And I'm like, dude, if I'm hungry, like that's insane. Like, you want me to do all this before I eat? Like, come
Wash your hands.
And so like Jesus then says, like, you got it backwards. You think that
you guys missed the point.
You missed the point. The point is not about
your heart.
Eating. It's about what's coming out of you. Mm-hmm. So, which my mom would make a joke about stuff defiling you. You'd be like, oh yeah, it's what comes out of you. So when you mess up that bathroom, I'm like, what? So not what that scripture says, Mom. Oh, taking it out of context.
All right. Heresy. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And I think that the idea was just the fact that those who believed in Jesus from different cultures didn't have to like denounce their culture and become a Jew They were grafted in where they were. Yeah. So if they wanted to adopt them, it's totally fine. If you want to celebrate feast days, if you want to not eat bacon, that's totally fine. That's your preference.
Yeah, but Paul does warn against that, and he's like, if you're trying to be justified by the law, then good luck. But you don't have to. You're subjecting yourself to a type of slavery you don't have to go free from that. And so, and actually,
he also makes an argument when you eat with Gentiles. Like he was like, whatever's placed before you, like for the sake of the gospel, eat it. Don't put up a fight.
Don't be all crazy about it.
If you're gonna go to your friend's house and be like, oh yeah, I want to tell my friend about Jesus. He invites you over for dinner, and then they like bring out fried alligator, bro. Like bacon. You might want to just go ahead and eat the alligator and the bacon to keep the peace, so that you can share the gospel, because you don't want to offend someone. Yeah, in
a lot of Ephesians and Galatians are especially about the relationship between Jews and Gentiles, and like Paul is just trying to get them like, yo, you guys need to like put this stuff aside. And that's what Romans is. The whole point of Romans is that there was a rift between the Jewish Christians and the Gentile Christians in Rome. The Jews had been expelled, and then the Gentiles got to stay, so they kind of took over. And then the Jews came back, and they're like, man, what y'all doing? You ain't doing it right. So they're having a bunch of issues, and Paul's like, look, both of you guys are off. And he addresses them differently, but yeah.
That ended up being way more interesting than I thought it would be. And I think that's what happens a lot. You get hung up on these little things, and then when you actually listen to the answer, it's like, oh, that's so, like,
amazing and
interesting. Yeah. Like, there's so much.
It's way deeper than that.
Yeah. So that's why I love questions. Okay. And people that can answer them.
Respond to them.
Respond to them. Do you Ewans think that Paul wrote all of the letters attributed to him, and if not, are they scripture?
Okay. I
wanted to ask a question, like, where did this question come from? But
so it's funny because in a lot of my Bibles, each book has like a intro, they like tell you like the date, who wrote it, all kind of stuff. And they tell you like all of the controversies about each book. And now there's like, some people say he didn't write it, and then they explain to you why that's not. You have to worry about that. Like this person.
Is it like so? Because what I'm trying to understand is it something like the Gospel of Mark being spoken by Peter, written by Mark? Is that what they mean? Is that what you're trying to?
My question is more of like, honestly, the ones that are farther back, like literally in the Bible. Like I think the ones in question for some people are like Titus, 1st and 2nd Timothy. There's one other back there that it's like
Philemon.
Maybe, I don't know, but it's letters. It's not the Gospels.
Yeah, and I would get why people are upset about those and want to discredit them because of what they say about women, particularly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I love this question. So there is a Bible Project episode entirely about how letters were made in that time, in the 1st century. And it's like so fascinating. I wish we could listen to the whole thing. It's like an hour, so we can't. But okay, so essentially, I'll try to summarize as much as I can. So you let me ask you this: how do you think the letters were written? Like, tell me anything that you would think. Like, how were they actually created?
I know they took a lot of time.
Okay.
Like, not just like one letter took like a day. I know it took like a lot of time, and it was hard work, and you literally that would be like your job. I know that, right?
There were professional writers. That is a job.
I mean, and then with like not translating it. Wasn't it like, weren't there some people that like it was literally their job to just copy it down? That's just what I think of. Other than that, I don't really know.
Okay, so I'm asking, like, how did one person like sit there and like write them out? Like, how did Paul do it?
Oh,
how did Paul do it?
Didn't usually he would speak it and someone else would write it for him? But then there's the one where he's like, "Look how big my letters are."
Okay.
So I don't know.
Okay.
So I'm supposed to ask the questions. Those are my responses. Okay.
Let's go.
Okay, so they were almost entirely a team effort. Number one. Here. go to Colossians 4:16.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I feel nervous because this is on a camera and people are gonna judge how long it takes.
They're like,
to read
why
it."
did she grab so many pages? She doesn't know where Colossians could be
Both read it.
found.
And that's a small one too.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie though. They would say Colossians, I'd open the Chronicles and be like, oh, dang it.
Colossians what?
4:16.
Oh.
What does it say?
After this letter has been read at your gathering, have it read also in the church of the
Laodiceans.
Okay. And see that you also read the letter from
The Laodiceans.
Laodicea.
Yeah, Laodicea. Okay. So these letters, number one, were meant to be read
Circulated.
out loud and circulated. Okay. Now, go to
Wait. So he said, read this letter to the Laodiceans, and then take the letter that the Laodiceans have, and
which
you all
could
read.
be its own letter, or it could be the letter to the Ephesians.
Oh,
Scholars
I was
aren't-
gonna say,
scholars
where's
aren't
first
sure.
and second Laodicea?
Yeah, scholars aren't sure if it was just the letter to the Ephesians.
Yeah.
They
You just had a copy.
Yeah. Okay. So go to 1 Thessalonians 1:1.
It's right here.
Yeah. What does it say?
Paul, Silvanus, and Timothy.
Sylvanus, which is
Sylvanus.
Silas. Okay. So Paul, Silas, and Timothy.
To the church of the Thessalonians in God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, grace to you and peace.
Okay. So who wrote that?
Paul and Timothy.
And Silas. Okay. Go to 2 Timothy 4.
I'm learning something right now. This is cool. It's weird because I got thinking like as she's reading, I'm thinking, huh. The answer is, so it's not as clear as you think it would be, like just a yes and a no.
Go to 2 Timothy
Oh.
4.
Like this is like ASMR.
Okay, 2 Timothy 4:11 through 13. What do they say?
Only Luke is with me. Bring Mark with you, for he is useful to me in the ministry. I have sent
Tychicus.
Tychicus
Mhm.
to Ephesus. When you come, bring the cloak I left in Troas
Mhm.
with Carpus, as well as the scrolls, especially the parchments.
Okay, so Luke was with him. Tychicus was with him. He made that clear.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people picture Paul sitting in his study, like in a room full at a desk, like just writing out his letters.
With a regular ink pen.
I don't know. Okay. Now, number one, he didn't have a study. He was a traveling tent maker preacher. So
Yeah.
he didn't have a place, right? It was extremely expensive to make letters in the in the first century. Extremely expensive. That's why they're prophetic. Like you said, there were points where he was dictating to someone, right? But it wouldn't just be like him talking to one person in one room by themselves. Oftentimes they're traveling with a group of people. He's almost never alone. And they're at like an inn or a I don't know, like a restaurant, just like a place where there's a lot of people. He's never alone in a quiet place.
Prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Prison.
But he's in house arrest or he's in prison, right?
Yeah.
And he wasn't in prison by himself. You read Colossians, there were like 3 people who were with him in prison, right? And so him and a team would write these letters together. They would talk about them. They would have conversations. Paul did write small pieces. That's why he says, "Hey, bring me my parchments." They had these things that were called like wax tablets, and so you could like write into them, and then you could do this thing where it smear it would get rid of it, with erase it, like a etch a sketch almost, where you shake it. And so he would write small sections of it. That's why you read the letters and there's certain parts that sound just like other letters. That's why, because he written these small sections.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so, but he almost never wrote them by himself. It was always a team that would have input, and he's writing them together. Now he's obviously the leader, he's the lead author. He's like the main guy in charge, but he's not writing it by himself.
Oh.
Right. And then they would meet with a professional writer, and they would go over drafts. He'd give him, I want you to put this piece in that I wrote. Hey, maybe we should move this paragraph here. They would have these writing meetings, and again, you had to pay a professional. They could write very clearly and fit a lot on a small piece of page because the materials were super expensive.
Wow.
Right? And that's why you see those certain parts where it says, I, Paul, am writing this in my own hand. Because he didn't write all of it, right? He's like, I'm like, give me that. Sign Paul. So that was me. You knew that was me on there, right? Why would he need to say that if he wrote the whole thing?
Right.
Right?
Ah.
Okay. So to get to your question, does it matter? Number one, it's definitely scripture, right? All of the letters in the Bible are scripture. Now, those ones that you called in the question, Titus, Timothy, Titus and the two Timothys, those are personal letters between him and those two individuals, right? But even that one, he didn't write by himself. Even the one in Timothy, he did not write by himself.
Right.
Luke is here. I'm sending Tychicus here. Mark was with me. Can you go bring him back? Blah, blah, blah. Like, he's not alone. There's actually one of the letters where I think Tychicus like says, hey, it's me. I'm here. And there's so many of them where it's like, hey, so-and-so says hi. So-and-so says hi. So-and-so. That's because they're in the room.
Man.
That's why.
That's tight.
Okay. So
that's so cool.
It's amazing. And so the point is, all of the ideas that went into these letters were God breathed through the conversations that they had with the people, including women. There's a ton of women who were involved. Phoebe was definitely involved in Romans.
Yeah.
Why he gives her so much. She's definitely one who delivered the letter. And if you're going to deliver a letter from Paul that's supposed to be read out loud, as we learned, to all the people in the room, you would have to be ready to explain stuff and answer questions. That means Paul gave them instructions. Hey, when they, on this part, emphasize this. Hey, when they ask about this, this is what I mean by this, right? So she had a very important part in delivering the message of the letter. Man. Whoever was the one who delivered it, they had a lot of instruction. So that's why he names so many women in these letters. This person, my coworker, they were great to me. But so a lot of people contributed to this, and that makes the letter more scripture to me than just Paul by himself in a room.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have so many people talking about God and the gospel and Jesus, and all these ideas are flowing. And we know when believers get together, the Spirit is just doing its thing. Right? So these letters are even more spirit breathed than any other parts of the Bible almost, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Oh man, that's good.
Well, okay, why do you think people say, oh, Paul didn't write that?
Because they haven't done the research. They have a misconception about how letters were written in the first place. They think it was just one guy writing the whole thing in one go.
Because everybody tries to put it
because
into
that's
our
how
time
we
period.
write letters, right? And so
they had it the same way we did it.
We don't have the right context of how letters were made at that time. Not just biblical letters, all letters from that time. It was pretty much that process because the materials were so expensive, right? So I think people said it because they have the wrong interpretation, wrong understanding, but also they're just trying to discredit. They don't like what the letters say. They don't like a lot of stuff in there. And, you're not going to like everything that the Bible has to say. It's going to cut you. It's going to be difficult to deal with it, but you have to. And the beautiful thing, even with Paul, if you just take Paul, when he says one thing, he says something else to balance it out. Almost always. Like if you're going to say, when he says women need to keep silent, he can't possibly mean never speak, because he also says other letters, women are going to be prophesying. This woman does this, the church in this woman's house. So there's no way he means be silent.
Right.
So he balances out what he said. I think knowing people are going to really struggle with this. Even Peter in his letter says, Paul is hard to understand. I don't get him. Peter literally says that I forget which one, but he's like, our brother Paul, man, we love him, but he is, I don't get him. He's up here.
Up there, yeah.
Peter literally says that in the Bible.
You'll have to send that verse to me.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So it's like we gotta chill. We gotta relax and realize these are just amazing. God is amazing in how he put that thing together. Okay.
Man,
I love that. I'm done now. That was the only one I was.
That was
the only one I was hyped
good,
for,
though, man.
That was one I was hyped for.
It's just good to hear that. Back then, things were done in community. Nothing is just you can't just create something on your own and just think okay, cool. I did this. I put it out there. Even when you think about now, we don't write letters, but when you write a book, you're not normally writing up, especially if it's a theological book. You're not writing that by yourself. You might write it and then you'll send it to someone and say, hey, could you check this out?
Yeah, I mean,
does this make
book
sense?
I'm reading now by John Montgomery. I mean, he references a ton of people.
Yeah.
And I mean, and not that no book of the Bible was written alone. I'm sure the prophets were like, yeah, okay, God. Okay, that sounds good. And so, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, those parts in particular, especially the epistles, which is just the Greek word for letter. It's not a fancy word. It just literally means letter. It's not super spiritual or anything. But those were group efforts, which are dope. They were led by Paul. He was the leader for sure. It's his voice. But he had help. And that's actually should give you a lot more reassurance.
Absolutely.
Right?
It makes it more credible.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Came up with it
All right.
myself. Okay. Okay, this one is more of an opinion kind of response. Is mission work colonization?
I think historically, yes. I think it has been, unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't think it was meant to be. Like when it started, whoever like was like, oh yeah, we should go like tell people about the gospel. I don't think it started that way, but I think once you realize that you could, or once people who don't really love Jesus learn they can manipulate whole populations using the gospel, I think that's when it became colonization.
Well, I think my response to that would be, I don't think any colonizer thought they were colonizing. Like, I don't think it was intentional. Here's my point. Once Christianity becomes accepted by Rome, it went off. It went crazy, right? Because you have a bunch of non-Jewish people trying to read this book that they don't understand any of the cultural stuff, just like we do today. They didn't understand. They don't understand the Jewish history or culture,
sacrifices,
or language. They didn't understand a lot of things. So they misinterpret a ton of stuff. They reinterpret stuff through European eyes. Like all the art, everybody's white. All the art. In fact, there's a very famous, I think it's by Rembrandt. It's a painting of Paul writing a letter. And he's literally sitting in a European-style chair in a room with a desk and writing all this stuff. And he's like, I mean, it's a beautiful painting, but he definitely didn't have a European-style chair.
No.
I mean, come on. So I think once that happens around, I think 800 AD, things get crazy. And you start having the development of the Catholic style of doing things. And they start sending out, and then the Catholic Church gets kind of co-opted by rulers like European kings who want to use the church for power, right? And the Pope wants to use the king for power, right? So they're using each other. That's why you have the Crusades coming out, right? And it's like, yo, we can take land and take money from other places in the name of God, and we take all this gold and we plant all this stuff, and like the Catholic Church, one of the richest countries in the world. The Vatican has so much money, so much power.
That's crazy.
Right? So, and then when you have people, monks and missionaries going to these places and they meet people of color, they don't see them as human fully. They're like, oh, look at these like poor pagan like whatevers.
Oh, wow.
And then there's the whole question for centuries, did black people even have souls? Right? You're talking 13, 14, 15, 1600s, right?
Damn.
So I
That's
think
crazy.
They go to these places and they do all these crazy things. What they did to the Native Americans, all the missions in America and California. I mean, like, they didn't have the right idea about God and about these people and these image bearers. And they saw them as less than. They saw them as like, all kind of stuff. I mean, there's just a lot you can go into, but short answer, yes, I think it was unfortunately colonization. Now, today, going and on a mission trip today, I don't think so. Because you're not going in the name of a country, or you're not going to
on behalf of like a king.
You're not going to. It's not like America going to Iraq and saying you guys should have democracy and Coca-Cola and like McDonald's. It's not like that. You're going to this place to usually as a small group, to give people the gospel. Right.
You're not taking.
Yeah, I don't, and you're not
trying to set up.
No, there
a
are
lifestyle
people.
there.
I've heard stories of people going to a country and like teaching them the gospel and everything, teaching them the Bible, and the people were singing, they were worshiping in their language, and the person was like, "Oh no, why aren't you guys doing it in English?"
Oh God.
And it's like, fam,
We don't speak English.
like, but he thought it was like this horrible thing that they weren't doing it. Like, the Bible's not in English, bro.
Oh my
so in
God.
that sense, you're thinking like a colonizer in that
Uh-huh.
sense, right? Where it's like, oh, we need to give them our culture.
Right.
That's
Jesus
when it
didn't speak
becomes
English.
No.
Yeah, that's when it becomes colonization, when you're trying to give them culture.
Culture.
Instead of the Bible,
Yeah.
right? So
They should be able to live their lives the way they are living
Yeah.
them, just with Jesus now.
I think the hardest part is like trying to give people the Bible and translate it into their language.
Mhm.
That's got to be so difficult when you go to some like remote tribe
Yeah.
somewhere and you're trying to like come up with like, how do you do transfiguration in their language? How do you have a term for like it's got to be so difficult. People that translate the Bible, I'm like,
Man, bless
man,
God for you.
bless your heart,
Because they
Amen.
no
'cause I
way.
ain't got it. Yeah,
That's tough.
yeah.
Good response, though, Jeff. I like
Thank
that
you.
one. That was good.
Brandon's got the next 10.
What?
Okay. Do the Gospels read more like fables than historical documents?
I think it depends. I mean, because so I'm reading this book right now, and it's called Lord Falgren's Letters, and it's a book about it's a Christian fiction. Yeah, Christian fiction. And in the book, the main character, his name is Jordan, he doesn't go to church. And like now, like halfway through, he's like, starting to think that Christianity can be a thing that he can believe in. And one of his friends gives him the Bible and he reads it and he's like, bro, this can't be true. Like this reads like a fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And like from his point of view, yeah, I can't really see anyone who doesn't believe, anyone who's like not a believer to believe in the Bible and be like, oh yeah, all this is legit. You read it, it just like, first of all, starts off in the beginning, God. Like, where did this character come from? Just here, and then creates the world in 7 days. So there are a lot of things that seem fable-ish. But the thing that like changes it is when for me anyways, it was like when Jesus finally clicked for me. Then the Bible started to make more sense. And then it became, no, this is true. I have to believe on this. I have to believe in this. Because if one of these things aren't true, then it kind of like messes up the validity of the whole Bible. So I think it could sound fableish, and it depends on which parts. I don't think that the letters sound like fables.
Well, she said the gospel specifically.
Oh, gospel specifically?
Yeah. So just
No.
those 4. I would say no.
It sounds like a
I
documentary.
mean,
or
I
anything
could get. So here's the thing about the gospels that are interesting. The writers had different priorities. Each writer of the gospels had
True.
a different priority. And so they are trying to make a point. And just the way that the biblical authors use narrative is different than the way we use narrative. Like when you're telling a story. So this is going to sound really bad, but it's not. When you're using a historical event, right, to make a point, you're going to tell the story in a certain way to make a point, right? For example, when it says that people did something for 40 days, was it literally 40 days? Was it 39? Was it 41? Like, and you're like, every time it's 40 days? This guy also is 40 days. So, but when you realize that in Hebrew culture, 40 is a symbol for testing, right? So maybe it wasn't literally 40 days. Are they lying? No.
They were testing something.
They're demonstrating this person was going through a period of testing, right? So they used the number 40. Now, it was probably close to 40. That's why they were able to use it, right? So the point is, with the Gospels, when you read Matthew, he's talking to a Jewish audience, trying to justify that Jesus was your legitimate king in the line of David. He has authority, he has legitimacy where you need to believe in him. You can respect him. Mark, it has a totally different objective. He's trying to show him as a servant, he's trying to talk about the kingdom of God, right? Luke is showing him as a human. He humanizes him. That's why Luke just spends the most time about Jesus as a kid, right? Because it's like this guy, he lived a human life. He didn't just appear as a 33-year-old, right? Okay, and then John is like, I'm not even gonna start with his birth. In the beginning was the Word. Like, wait, what? Yeah. And all of a sudden, Jesus just appears as a grown man in John. He's just like, yeah. So anyway, miracles, God.
Yeah, right in the beginning,
right? Because his point is that Jesus was God. I'm going to show you. And then John tells stuff totally out of order. He has Jesus cleaning the temple way early.
Super.
Right?
You're just like, why is he so angry right now?
Yeah, like all of a sudden, just like chapter 3, like, why is he mad? What's that? And so, did these things historically take place? Yes. Is the author trying to give you a documentary? No. They're trying to prove a point with what happened historically. So, does it read like a fable more than a historical textbook? Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Does that mean you shouldn't believe in it? No, you should. Right? So,
because it's trying to prove a point, and the fact that it's teaching lessons throughout the whole thing, depending on where, like, who you are, and if you're a Jew, if you're a Gentile, it's going to sound a little bit different. But the truth of the matter is, like, I'm trying to tell you something through these series of stories. The stories are all true, but through this series of stories.
Now, the one who's most like a historical document is Luke, because Luke is literally like an outsider. He's like a journalist, like, yo, this happened. He's literally, that's why he also writes Acts. They're sequels. Acts is a sequel to Luke. It's like a part 2. And so they're literally meant to be like, this is what happened.
Right.
Right. And so if you want a real, like, historical document, go read Luke. But the other 3 have different purposes in showing Jesus.
Yeah. Especially John. John
wrote his in 90 AD. Everybody else was gone. He was old.
Oh, that's
right. And he had, like I told her, he had spent the rest of Mary's life taking care of her. Jesus on the cross, he says, hey, this is now your mom. Take care of her. And so he spent the rest of her life looking after her, taking care of her. And she's telling him all these amazing stories about Jesus when he grew up and all the stuff that happened.
So he has
a lot more insight. Plus, when he's writing, much stuff has happened. All the other books of the New Testament have already been written. And he's like, look, I'm on my way out because he's about to get in trouble. He's like, I'm about to show y'all, like, who this dude was, like, for real, like what he was. The rest of you guys did a great job. But y'all didn't show him as who he is, which is God. Let me tell you.
Maybe that's why he jumped around. So
because he's like, I don't.
He's old. Like, oh yeah, and this also, by the way.
And then he says, and he goes, Jesus did so much, I could fill books with what he did.
Yeah.
But I don't have time.
Could you have done that, please?
Man,
that would have been nice.
That'd have been wild.
Imagine all the stuff that we don't know that Jesus did, because we just have 4 accounts. And that's just what they could remember. And it's like, oh yeah, he did this. Oh yeah, that's why some of the stories aren't in all the Gospels, right? But just imagine just all the random Tuesdays, like on the road, just walking, and like what he was. Like,
imagine the jokes.
Just that's why I love The Chosen. That's why I love The Chosen, because it just makes me like feel like that's probably what it was like. He was probably hilarious and dope and playing practical jokes on them, and like just even his inside jokes.
Even his sarcasm would have been
would have been great.
Dang, Jesus got you, bro. I know. Like,
and plus the stuff that he would know about the universe and things like that. He's like, y'all have no idea about germs and atoms and molecules.
It's like, don't touch that. Why?
Just trust me. You don't want.
That's funny.
Yeah, but just. Like, we have the Sermon on the Mount, but imagine how many other teachings, because they literally called him rabbi. He must have been teaching all the time. And there's so many times where it's like Jesus would begin teaching. And you just like, they don't write down what he was teaching. They just said he was teaching. I'm like, I want to know. What was you saying? I wanted to hear it.
Man.
I think it has more credibility, though, that it was. Yes. Because if Jesus came in our time, people would be like, oh, that's edited. Like, no way. Like, it'd be all these videos.
Everything's auto-tuned.
Yeah, it would be hard to it would be harder, I think, if he was in our time. Even though you could record the whole thing, just with CGI alone, you'd be like, he's not really doing that. Right. That's a deep fake.
It's a deep fake.
That was one question I had a while back. Is like, why didn't he come when there was videos? And it's like, you can answer that yourself. Like that wouldn't have been.
That wouldn't have been good.
And I think even like the world would be so deprived. Like imagine like not having the Holy Spirit
waited,
all the way until now.
That would have been. We wouldn't be.
We would not be okay.
We would have destroyed the planet by now. Yeah.
Dude.
We would have tried to build a tower to heaven again.
It's like, oh, we could do it now.
Yeah, man. Right. Dang, we're already at 55 minutes.
Are you serious?
Yes.
That was what,
We're
3 questions?
I don't even know, but we're gonna go to like at least 115.
Should I like pick out?
Do what you want to
Yeah,
do.
whichever one you
going?
want.
Pick. We can do a part 2. I don't care.
I like this.
This is fun.
Okay, I wrote Ordained Festivals, and you put a star next to it. I don't know. I don't really know what my question was. Like, I know.
No, I feel like you put a star. I didn't put the stars. I just, those stars were there.
I think mostly my question is like, okay, they used to do these festivals. Maybe this is the same answer will be like with Jews versus Gentiles kind of a thing. But like, there were all these ordained festivals. Why don't we do them anymore?
Okay.
Did they have to?
Yes.
Like, what was?
So there were 7, which is very significant. The 7 feast days, the Moedim is what they're called in Hebrew. And they are all part of the Sabbath cycle. So like the entire Jewish life was broken up into 7s. So you have the 7-day like week, and you have it all leads up to the culminates with the Sabbath, Friday night, Saturday night. And then you have throughout there's like the 7th month, something happens. You have these 7 festivals throughout the year that you have to observe. And they all mean different things. There's Passover and then the Feast of Booths, and there's all kind of them. And then every 7 years, you're supposed to have a Jubilee. I mean, a Sabbath year. And then every 7 times 7, you have a Sabbath year, and then the 50th you have the Jubilee year. So like everything is calendared out around rest and trusting God and all that stuff. And so that was the whole point of all of those. And so again, now that Jesus is here, he already, when you read I forget where in Luke, where he goes in the synagogue, opens up the scroll of Isaiah, and he reads Isaiah. Gosh, I should know this. I forget.
Was it 61?
I think so. He literally like announces the ultimate year of Jubilee, where like everyone's now free. I've come to set the captive free. So we don't need to do any of that stuff anymore because he's already because the whole point of them was to practice as though you were free, as though you were back in the garden. That was the whole point of the Jewish life of all those 7s, was to practice as though we were back. And so Jesus is like, I did it. You're back. Now, but not yet. And so now that you've all been set free, live like you have been. But remember, he says, my kingdom has come near. The kingdom of God is here, but it's also not here. So we live as though it's here, but not here. So we're waiting for the ultimate day when Jesus comes back. But we're living like he's already done it, because he has.
Every day's a festival.
Every day is.
So cool.
Yeah. But I will say, after reading this book, shout out to John Mark Comer, Garden City. Everybody should read it. Man, we are missing out by not
Celebrating?
doing the Sabbath.
Oh, the Sabbath.
Yeah, we are missing out. And again, it doesn't have to be like the literal Friday to Saturday, but like not having a Sabbath cycle in your life,
Like a day of rest.
like literally where you rest, and our concept of rest is not what we think. By not doing that, that's why
I don't trust God.
Well, that's why we have so much mental health issues and depression and anxiety and unhealthy stuff, and everything is out of whack. We literally are the generation that we have the most that any group of humans have ever had, and we're the most unhappy.
Yeah.
We're so sad.
Yeah. We're sadducees.
Oh no.
But it's even crazy as you were talking about like the feast days. Like number one, they all point to Jesus, so like that's like really cool. But I think because we don't know much about them, we take them for granted, which then makes us take the Sabbath for granted. Because if you're taking everything for granted, then the Sabbath is just another day to you. But then you miss out on like the wonders of God.
Yes.
Like I just feel like there's so many things you could like learn from like these feast days. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. My brother's a Hebrew Israelite, so I was like anti-feast days. I was like, never, not at all, not happening. But then it was like, actually, like when I started actually reading them, it was like, this context is good for me personally to be able to have a balance, and then even think about, having being able to take, which is crazy to us. You would never think about taking a year off of work. Like you would never even
think about it. Dream about it.
Yeah.
But like think about if you're cool, I'm saving this up because like on the 7th year, I'm not working all year.
You trust that God is going to give you more on the 6th year, which He did. He said, "I will give you
more on the 6th year,
enough to survive for like 3 years." Because when you get to the Jubilee year, that's 2 years
that you can't
where you don't touch the land. And He says, "I'm going to give you enough food for 3 years, so that when you get to that 3rd year, you're still going to be eating from like 3 years ago's food, and you're going to be able to start planting, and you'll be good." So like, if you're going to trust that I'm going to provide enough, you should do it. If not,
and that's why I feel like our trust is like really shady when it comes to God.
Well, that was His promise to them, right? But if we literally tried to live like that, like, is that not that God's promises stop? But
I was like, His promise still stands.
Is that how things still work? Like, if I wanted to celebrate first of all, I celebrated Passover one time. It was amazing. I think it'd be good just to celebrate them, just to understand Jewish culture and like really have more robust understanding of your faith in God. But if you did try to live like that, like work 6 years and then take a 7th year rest, like, does that still apply, I guess?
I don't know. Here's what I will say. I can't say yes for sure, right? But
yes, do it.
I think you should be doing a 6-day work,
which I think prepares you for a 7th year.
And here's the thing, right? Is it doable in our current society? Yes, but like, how many of us would be willing to live like that, where you give up? Because what job are you going to be able to do? What career are you going to be able to do? But they let you do that, right?
Like, I don't know, 6 years is a long time. If you could really be like,
no, here's what I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about just a week. I'm talking about just a week.
Oh.
Where you work for 6 days and you rest, right? And it's funny how we have this concept of like, you don't have to do the Sabbath anymore. People like want to get free from the Sabbath, and it's like,
I don't want to get free from a day off work.
Well, but the thing is, like, you get to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, we don't have the right idea. It's not like I get to sit around and watch Netflix all day. That's not Sabbath.
No.
What rest is when I contemplate and I spend time with God for 24, like for a day. Where like literally, like the whole point of life was, in the Jewish concept, was you work with God for 6 days, producing and getting stuff out of the creation, and then you spend a day sitting back and enjoying what you produced
with God.
With God, you just sit back and go, "Man, God, we did that." It's like, we sure did, human.
Yeah,
human. And you. So like a typical Sabbath would be like, you prepare. You spend Friday morning and afternoon like preparing. You do all your cleaning, do all your shopping, and you start cooking. And so sundown, which is like 6 o'clock, you stop working. You have people come over, or you go to someone's house and you have a Sabbath meal where you eat and you read scripture and you sing and you just talk about God and you just enjoy God. You go to sleep. You wake up the next day. You go to synagogue. You hear more scripture. Maybe there's a reading or I don't know if they would call it a sermon, but someone speaks. You sing, and then you go back home, and you spend the rest of the day like hanging out, fellowshipping, talking about God, singing, read more scripture, and then at sundown it's over, and you can go back to work the next day.
That sounds hella peaceful.
And imagine like how much more healthy we would be if we really did that. And John Mark Comer, like, now he says, "I'm a pastor. I have the freedom to not work."
Right.
And he's like, literally, like me and my wife and my 3 kids, like we literally like, my kids are like, "Is it Sabbath yet? Is it Sabbath yet?" Like they're excited about it.
That's amazing.
And it's like they look, it's literally the climax, the culmination of the week. It's the highlight of the week. And we are missing out. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out, is this even possible for me in my life right now?
I think it's worth a try.
Yeah.
Like if nothing else, man, I think, because I'm even just reading these things, and even like I understand like how they ate on these days. Like everything was symbolic. So it's like you're just trying to, you're trying to teach yourself, and it's a good way to teach your kids about like the importance of resting with God. I'm just like, man, I feel like I'm missing out on a whole portion of God that's probably like the most beneficial to my mental health. Like the reason I'm stressed, I actually got a stress rash on like my side, and I was telling her what the doctor was telling me. It was like, I was like freaking out. I was like, I'm dying. So on the same day, I got a gray hair in my beard.
I saw that.
I was terrified.
I have 3. So don't worry.
I was like, I'm going up yonder. And then I had this rash, and I'm like, okay, what the heck? I'm dying. This is
it's shutting down.
So I ended up going to the doctor and just like, hey, can you, like, I was going to get some cream. I didn't want to get the wrong stuff, have like allergic reaction. Long story short, like the doctor was like, yeah, this is a stress rash. Like what have you been doing? Because your body's like telling you, stop working me to death.
Killing me.
Like we are dying and you don't even notice.
Yeah.
And he was like, you just need to take time off. Like put some coconut oil and take some time off. And literally did that yesterday. Yesterday was like our last. So we had to lock in on Friday. Saturday we had to go to this conference. And then yesterday I had like pretty much the whole day to myself. Today I had the whole day to myself except for when I get here. And the rash is almost gone. And I was just like, that's crazy. Like I had this thing for like 2 days, and then all of a sudden just not doing anything, just resting helped take it away. Yeah. So I think that there's so much more like just health, like mental health, yes, but even like our physical health depends on the kind of rest that we're doing with the Lord.
Yeah, and God knows that.
So I'm with it, man. I'm down to get in that rest. And I just felt like the food would be fire. Good question. It was just it wasn't even a question. It was just like I got this on here, but I don't know what I was going to ask.
Ordained festivals? Question mark? I don't know.
But that worked out great.
Maybe we can do one more. We'll see.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Let me pick a good one. Oh, okay. I think this one's interesting. So it's a prophecy, right? That water would come out from his side. Jesus. Okay. Did water come out from Jesus' side, or was it just plasma? And if it were plasma, which I'm convinced it was, because I think that's a good argument that people have for like, they said this would happen and this is how we know that this happened. If it was just plasma, then isn't the prophecy about water coming out technically wrong?
Okay, so I could not find any prophecy that said that.
Okay, maybe I was wrong.
I looked. There's no prophecy about water coming out.
Coming out of what?
Or
out of Jesus.
I think it was... Did you check Psalm 22? Maybe it's that.
Oh, show me.
Okay.
Because only prophecy I saw is that he would be pierced and not a bone would be broken. Those are the only 2 prophecies that came true.
That's the one that I know of.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it would depend on, like, the context of what that prophecy would say entirely. Because, like, it's not really prophecy if it just says,
and
water came out. Yeah. For what?
Like Moses strikes the rock and water gushes out. It's like, see? Prophecy. But my follow-up question. Oh, you found it?
I am poured out like water, and all my bones are disjointed. My heart is like wax melting within me. That's Psalm 22. And isn't that whole thing like... Because when he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Everybody's like, oh, Psalm 22. And that was like prophecy about the Messiah. And then that part about water coming out.
It doesn't say water's coming out. It said I'm poured out like water.
That.
He says I am poured out like water. It doesn't say water's coming out. But, question. Why couldn't it be water?
Why couldn't it be water?
Yeah.
Okay. The question comes from like people... Have you seen the movie they wrote about, or they did about the book, Lee Strobel? They did a movie about him writing that book, A Case for Christ.
Case for Christ, yeah.
And he goes to a doctor at one point and like talks to the doctor about like when people die, and the doctor was like, oh, this and this and this happens. So like scientifically, the way that they explained his death makes sense. And I think that was one of the things that he mentioned. A lot of my questions are like, some guy on Instagram said this. What do you think?
On TikTok?
Yeah.
So the only reason why I asked that is because when they pierce him, they could have hit his stomach. Or his intestine.
Yes. And
water would come out. So I'm just like, it could have been blood and plasma and water.
It was most likely all of it.
Yeah, like I don't see why it wasn't. He was like a little.
I mean, even I think about
because the goal was to kill him with this.
Yeah, they're trying to stab him in the heart.
Yeah, you're literally going all the way up through to the heart. That was the whole point.
And the doctor would say that like when someone's dead, if you pierce them like that, it would be plasma that comes out and it would be clear. And so it was like, it's like water.
Right. And my thing is, I don't know, but the author or whoever's writing like this account is not really like, like it's
H2O.
It's water and there's plasma. And I think I saw, like
plasma.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that was the goal. Yeah. Like it wasn't the point. It's like the point is he died. Like that's the point.
Yeah. And I know like the rhema that patient has preached about is that the blood and water coming out symbolizes the birth of the church. Because when a baby is born, blood and water comes out.
It's actually blood and plasma.
Wow.
So
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know if that's a prophecy saying that there would be blood, because it doesn't say blood and water. It says I'm poured out like water. Does it? But again, that could be. I have not heard people interpret that as a prophecy. I've just only heard about that he would be pierced and that no bone would be broken. And so both of those things were true.
And you said his bones were disjointed?
Yeah. As hard as wax.
Yeah, but his bones weren't disjointed.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Because being disjointed is not being broken.
Yeah, that's true. Because shoulders maybe all the socket.
Well, like, I mean, if you're hanging up there, I can imagine.
I mean, the crazy thing
I don't want to imagine
is that it was most likely through here, through your main nerve, and then you have to pull yourself up just to be able to breathe, and then your back is going up against the splintered wood, and it's been ripped open by the lashing. So every single breath like hurts, and then your wrist. I mean, I can only imagine the amount of pain
that you had to put yourself.
And people would be up there for like almost a day, sometimes 2 days. Some people
then they would just be like, "Okay, we're breaking your leg so you can suffocate,
so you can't breathe." And so
I was like, "Why did you just slit my throat?" Like,
I feel like that's. I don't know which one's worse. Those both are pretty slow. I feel like. Like suffocating.
Well, if you're already almost dead.
And my legs hurt. Broke my leg.
Breaking my legs, I feel like that's just like, we just want to inflict a lot more pain. Which is probably the point.
That was the point of crucifixion.
Like the most pain you could take without dying.
Yeah, that was the whole point of it. But
oh, Lord Jesus. Didn't think about getting.
Oh, dude, there was a question that you asked. I actually want to address it. It was question 24.
Oh, it's not bolded.
I know, but I researched it anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. We can do that one, or you can do another one, but this will be the last.
Oh, should we read Deuteronomy 21, 22 through 23?
If you want to do that question, if you don't want to do another one.
Well, let's do that question.
Okay. So the question is, Emma writes Deuteronomy 21, chapter 21, 22 to 23, and then she says, "I thought crucifixion wasn't invented until hundreds of years later." Which was I was like, So,
and Jeff is a history teacher, just so everybody remembers.
Yeah.
So this kind of stuff makes him
like,
all giddy on the inside. Let's see.
Well, and the heart of the question comes from like when they prophesy about Jesus being crucified. So like Psalm 22, it's like an even cooler prophecy because it's like David. That pastors are always like, oh yeah, David wouldn't have even known what crucifixion was, and he's like literally describing a crucifixion, and that's like, that's so cool. But then you read Deuteronomy, and it's like apparently reference. What it says. Oh boy.
21, chapter 21, and then 22 through 23.
It's crazy. I have no idea about that because it wasn't bolded, so I didn't look at it. So
I know.
I'm really
I
interested.
Just don't even see the ones that aren't bolded. 22 through 23. If anyone is found guilty of an offense deserving of the death penalty and is executed, and you hang his body on a tree, so that's what. You are not to leave his corpse on the tree overnight, but are to bury him that day. For anyone hung on a tree is under God's curse.
Okay, so does it say anything about being crucified?
Well, no.
No, it doesn't. It was literally.
And you had to already be dead.
Yeah, it says literally. Well, no, you would be hanged. To be hanged, you would die from.
I know, but
hanged.
didn't it say like if you were put on a tree? Was it to die or after you were dead?
Kill you.
Oh, to kill you.
You're not supposed to leave the body there overnight.
Okay.
So
wait, who's cursed though? Is it the person who left them hanging would be cursed?
I can't remember. I think it's both.
If anyone hung on a tree is under God's curse.
Oh yeah. So you don't want to do that to them, especially if they're Jewish. You would take them down. So it's not crucifixion, but it is setting the stage for Jesus, which is why when he does die, it's the Passover.
They don't leave him overnight.
And they go, hey, can we take him off? Because it's against our law to leave a body up here overnight. That's why they get him down and get him into the grave. So.
Oh, and the thieves.
Yes, them as well.
They don't let them stay up
there
there
either. Yeah.
Wow.
So some responses make you go, wow, the Bible's amazing. And some are like, wow, that was easy. Which is good. I like both.
Okay, there's one more I want to do.
Okay.
It was question 25.
What's the timer?
We're at 1:15.
Okay, we got 5 minutes.
Yeah. Question 25.
John 7:6-9.
And you said, did Jesus lie? And I love this.
Wait, what is this thing after?
Huh?
What does it say after? Opu versus...
That's A, which means answer.
I know.
I got you, bro. Trust me. It's going to be dope.
I feel like it's like Jeff code or something like
it makes sense to me.
I have no idea what that says.
Okay. So, I was like so intrigued by this.
Did Jesus lie?
Did Jesus lie? So let me read it. So it's John 7, verses 6-9. Right? Okay. So, Jesus said to them, "My time has not yet come, but your time is always here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about it and its works are evil. You go up to the feast. I am not going up to the feast.
I remember this.
For my time is not yet fully come." After saying this, he remained in Galilee. But after his brothers had gone up, then he also went up, not publicly, but privately. So, did he lie? No.
Okay.
He did not. It's so cool. So, this Bible does it have a footnote? You already closed it.
I was on my phone.
Okay. So mine has a footnote on the word not. Okay. And some manuscripts, some of the oldest manuscripts say not yet. Right. But even in the Greek, okay, this is where it has oupo versus oak. Those are two different Greek words. So let me read it.
For not?
Well, yeah. So it says, Jesus' statement is my study notes of my Bible. Jesus' statement, "I am not going up to this feast," should not be taken as a mistake by John or a falsehood by Jesus. Even though John then records that Jesus did go up to the feast, the Greek present tense in verse 8 can legitimately have the sense, "I am not now going," right? Indicating that Jesus did not go up to the feast in the way the brothers suggested, for they wanted Jesus to manifest himself to his contemporaries for secular reasons. In fact, many of the oldest and best manuscripts have oupo, which means not yet in Greek.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than simply oak, which just means not. So it literally says, "I am not, now is not yet."
Mm-hmm. So y'all go.
Yeah.
I'll go.
I'm not going yet. He literally said that.
Biggest thing I got out of that was it wasn't an original question, which I'm offended by. Just kidding.
No, it was
Like, oh, somebody else thought of this before me. Dang.
Well, yeah, even which is crazy. All the translations that I'm looking at right now, they all say not yet.
Yeah. So.
Cool.
But
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
So there you go.
Man.
Man.
So Jesus not a liar. For all you guys who are thinking
I
that,
learned
it's like
something today.
they got him.
Finally.
Not on this episode.
Man, so this was too much fun.
This is great.
I hope you guys enjoyed it.
I learned a lot. I think I might have questions for the next one. Like,
we got to do this again.
we definitely have to.
We have to. And we always say that, like all the time.
No,
we got to do a part two.
Sometimes
We've done it like twice. We've
Yeah.
done like 2 part 2s, but we definitely have to do this again.
Well, I'll keep bugging you because
Please.
I like people listening to me.
Just add your questions to this document.
Okay.
And
I'm gonna
we'll
add
go
questions
from
to
there.
the
Yeah,
document,
dude, because we could do this all day.
Because after this conversation, it sparked a lot more questions. So it's like,
That's what happens.
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like
yeah,
people need to know these kind of things, and you get to know you can ask people questions.
Yes.
I learned this through the fictional books I'm reading. But one of the guys says, like, the way that there's only 2 types of Christians in the world: those who have questions and don't ask them, and then those who have questions and seek the answer. Like, the latter is the best.
Right.
So anytime that you're trying to grow in your faith, if you have questions, ask them. That's how you're literally going to grow in your faith. If you don't ask them, you're going to remain the same person you were when you first got baptized or saved, because maybe you didn't get baptized yet.
Yeah. Well, and can I say something about that?
No. All right, guys, that's a good.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I think that this episode is perfect to come after your episode where you talked about the rise and fall of Mars Hill, because I think because of so much church hurt, so many people are asking questions, and millennials were raised by people who were like, no, we don't ask questions. It is what it is. Like, even with the small things, it don't matter.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so important to have people like you guys in your life that will, like, listen to your questions and, like, answer them. And, like, I don't think I've asked one question that I didn't eventually find the answer to. And, like, I eventually got to the place where it was, like, questions weren't scary anymore. And it wasn't, like, the end of the world when I had a question. And so I think it's important to lean into them and not be afraid of them, and not be cynical about them either.
How old are you, Emma?
26.
Okay, so when I was 25, 26, questions were scary. And that was like my whole phase of, like, I went through my whole apologetics phase. I was that's when I discovered the Bible Project. I was in my deconstruction phase. And like you said, that's what I said at the beginning of the episode, like, because we came out of churches that were created by Gen Xers, right? We have a lot of questions. I think it's a requirement for millennials to deconstruct. We don't have a choice because we have to. And so it's really important that we get to the point where we are comfortable asking questions, we're comfortable seeking the answers, and we're okay with having them and maybe not finding an answer. Like you said, you're probably eventually going to find an answer. You may not like it, but there is an answer out there. And so I just think this process is, like, so necessary for so many people. And so listeners, like, if you found this invaluable and you really liked it, like, please send us questions. We can do another episode on this.
Yeah.
And Emma's gonna answer all of the next ones.
Yep.
Yes. Let's go.
Answer, not even respond. I have all the answers.
Let's go. But yeah, man, this has been super fun. Emma, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Emma. Appreciate you, girl.
Definitely bring Em back. And yeah, man, love y'all, and we will see you on the next one.
All right, everybody.
Peace.